Over to you, Tash.
Awesome, thank you. Yes, hi everyone. My name is Tash and I am the policy lead for statutory biodiversity credits at Defra. So I've been in this post since February and yeah, looking forward to talking to you all about BNG and statutory biodiversity credits for LPAs. So what we'll cover in this session, I'd like to focus quite closely on statutory biodiversity credits, although I will start with a quick recap of BNG as a whole. And then we'll spend most of our time talking about the process that the developer and the LPA will need to follow when credits are being purchased. There'll be time for questions at the end. And I'm joined by representatives from the Natural England sales team and also the Natural England policy team, Annabelle, who's on the screen. So they should be able to help me with any questions. I think everyone is on mute. If you can make sure you stay on mute until questions, that would be great. So as a quick recap of BNG, it's been a requirement for the majority of developments since April of this year. And for BNG purposes, we use habitat as a proxy for biodiversity. Developers have to deliver a minimum of 10% habitat uplift. It's a post-permission pre-commencement matter, which means that developers must show how they meet the 10% gain once they have received planning permission. This is because it's only at that point that the plans for the site are finalised and the final impact is known. Worth saying that when we're talking about habitats, we classify them according to distinctiveness. And for very high and high distinctiveness habitat plus watercourses and hedgerows, losses have to be replaced with the same habitat type. So moving on to how developers can achieve their BNG. And when looking to achieve BNG, we have what is called the mitigation hierarchy. So there are 3 different ways that developers broadly can meet their requirements, and these go in order of preference. The preferred option is avoiding impacts, so selecting your site to avoid impacts, or selecting where you build on your site, and or enhancing biodiversity on site. If that isn't possible, developers can enhance on other land holdings that they have, or they can purchase biodiversity units from third parties. Ideally, these units will be purchased from within the same local planning authority or adjacent local planning authority. As a last resort, if neither of those options are possible, government does sell these statutory biodiversity credits, which developers can buy to discharge their duties, and these credits will then be reinvested in habitat enhancements. Statutory biodiversity credits are meant to be a backstop, and they should only be used when other options aren't available. We really do want developers to follow the mitigation hierarchy, with preference given to avoiding impacts and mitigating on site, but they are there just to make sure that the pace of development in England is not impacted by the introduction of mandatory BNG. So money gets paid in by developers to a central pot that's held by Treasury, and government is then required to spend that income as set out in the Environment Act. So that's on habitat creation or enhancement, the purchase of land to facilitate habitat creation and enhancement, or the administration of the above. And we are obliged to produce annual reports on what credits have been bought and then what the credits income has been spent on. It is worth noting here that it will be more expensive for developers to buy credits in terms of the amount they'll need to purchase versus enhancing on-site or buying units from a local or adjacent LPA. So getting into the main part of this presentation and the role of the local authority, there are 3 main decision points that I think will come up on the journey if a developer is purchasing credits. So the first is when or if a developer first enters conversations with you with the LPA, which we would hope they would do, or when they submit a planning application with the BNG metric, you should be able to see if they're intending to use credits. And you can make an initial assessment as to whether the mitigation hierarchy has been satisfied. If you're happy that it has and that a credits purchase is necessary, once planning permission has been granted, the developer at that point would buy their credits, and then they would submit a gain plan to you, which would include information on how they've satisfied the mitigation hierarchy, and it will also include a credits proof of purchase document that will be issued by Natural England. So this credits proof of purchase document should be cross-checked with the metric to make sure that the right number of credits have been purchased for each tier. And I'll talk through how to do that shortly. But first of all, we will look at what the gain plan should include to justify a credits purchase. I think it's worth stating at the outset that in our guidance, we say if the site is very small, then the developer doesn't have to show that they've approached different unit providers to satisfy the mitigation hierarchy. But for a larger development in the game plan, this is where developers should be showing that they have looked first to do BNG on-site and then purchase off-site units in preference to credits. So the sorts of things you might see in here include an ecologist assessment that BNG can't take place on-site or can't take place wholly on-site, some inquiry emails to at least 3 BNG unit providers if they are a bigger development, showing that they've tried to buy off-site units and not been able to, or perhaps screenshots of the biodiversity gain sites register showing no unit availability of the required habitat type. So using that, you can satisfy yourselves that a credit purchase is justified. So then we'll move on to making sure that the right number of credits are bought. It's a little bit of a busy slide, but it shows a screenshot in the top right of the main metric. So when using the main metric, it's quite simple to see how many credits should be purchased at each tier, and it's shown in the unit shortfall tab. So it's helpful to think of unit shortfall somewhat confusingly as a synonym for credits. If developers are falling short on on-site BNG or off-site units, they will need to purchase credits, and that is shown here. You can see along the left-hand side in the green of the table that credits are priced in tiers. So these go from A1, which is the cheapest tier, and it covers lower distinctiveness habitats, all the way through A2, 3, 4, up to A5, which is really expensive. It's £630,000 per credit, and it covers like special types of lakes. So probably quite a rare one to be purchased. And then you'll see here that there are also separate tiers for hedgerows and watercourses, shown in the brown H cell and the blue W cell. And from this example, you can see that the unit shortfall summary is showing that the developer here should be purchasing 2.4 A1 credits and 1 hedgerow credit. As a quick note, the headline results tab shouldn't be used to guide credit purchases. So you can see that that's the screen grab in the bottom right. This doesn't include the spatial risk multiplier. So it would lead to developers not buying enough credits and not accounting for the BNG happening away from the development site and sort of bottom of the mitigation hierarchy. So summary of that, use the unit shortfall summary tab to have a look at how many credits they should be buying. What you'll then want to do if the developer is buying credits, when they submit their gain plan, they'll share with you the statutory biodiversity credits proof of purchase receipt that will be issued by Natural England. And you can see on the screen here a screenshot of the relevant bit of a mocked up sales receipt that was issued. The developer will share this with you. This will show how many credits that they've bought at each tier. And the LPA can then check that the number of credits for each tier matches the number in the unit shortfall tab. So you can see that in this example that I've shared, they do match. So the developer has bought 2.4 A1 credits and 1 hedgerow credit. So that's correct and all looks good. As a quick summary, this is just a bit of a recap of what we've talked about before in the credits journey. So what we'd expect to see is the developer first assessing whether impacts can be avoided or mitigated on-site. They would then go through to attempting to purchase units or mitigate on off-site land that they own themselves. If they aren't able to do any of those things, they've tried 3 providers or they're a very small development, they might decide to purchase credits to allow development to proceed. At this point, we would really hope that the developer will start a conversation with the local authority about their wish to purchase credits, and you can then talk through the mitigation hierarchy, make sure it's satisfied, perhaps direct them again to the unit shortfall tab to make sure that they are purchasing the right number of credits. And once their planning application has been submitted and approved, the decision notice will be issued, and at this point, the developer can purchase credits. Once they've done that, they'll submit the game plan, which we've talked about already, which will include the proof of purchase and the credits document issued by Natural England and how they've satisfied the mitigation hierarchy. And at this point, the LPA can do final checks that the hierarchy has been satisfied and that the correct number of credits have been bought. If both of those conditions are satisfied, then the game plan from a statutory biodiversity credits perspective, at least, can be approved and development can begin. And then I think this might just be useful in the future to have sort of to hand. It's a quick checklist of the two most important things that an LPA needs to be sure of when approving a game plan with respect to a credits purchase. Firstly, that the mitigation hierarchy has been satisfied, which can be found in the game plan submitted by developers, and ideally in earlier conversations with developers as well, although I know that doesn't always happen. And then secondly, that the correct number of credits have been purchased, which you can determine by cross-checking the unit shortfall tab of the metric with the credits proof of purchase document. So last session, we had someone raise an interesting point about fraud or a developer forging the receipt. And if you're concerned about that at all, just reach out to the Natural England sales team mailbox or to me, and we'll be able to confirm the purchase or not, as the case may be. But yes, don't hesitate to reach out to us in cases like that. So that's it for my quick rattle through on credits. I've put my email address down there. The slide pack will be shared, so you'll have my details. And then there is also the Natural England Sales queries mailbox. So yeah, please get in touch. And any questions are very welcome. I will stop sharing my screen.
Thanks, Tash. Brilliant.